Hello, everyone. This is Pam, de Café con Pam, the bilingual podcast that features Latine and people of the global majority who break barriers, change lives, and make this world a better place. Welcome to episode 367 of Café con Pam. Today, we have a conversation with Dr. Peter Rios. Dr. Peter is a renowned bilingual speaker, organizational consultant, and leadership coach with over 20 years of leadership development experience across multiple industries. Peter has consulted at institutions such as Harvard University, the Lilly Endowment, and the Department of Veteran Affairs. He's been a lecturer at Penn State, Colorado State, and the Pacific School of Religion at Berkeley. His passion for leadership and personal development and organizational change stems from his own transformational experience after overcoming trauma at an early age and embarking on an unprecedented journey of healing, self-discovery, and professional development. Peter is on a mission, along with his spouse, Dr. Ruby Gonzalez Rios, to build and develop people so they can maximize their potential and live healthy and fulfilled lives. Bueno, listeners, this conversation with Dr. Peter was really cool because we got to explore truly his life and how he grew up and how he chose to not become a statistic. And so I'm not going to delay this any further. Here's my conversation with Dr. Peter Rios. Well, Dr. Peter, welcome to Café con Pam.
Gracias, Pam. So excited to be with you and all those who are joining us today. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking. I'm excited to have you and explore and dive deep into your story. So the first question that we always ask is, what is your heritage?
Boricua. I'm Puerto Rican. All the way grew up in New York. My grandmother Lourdes raised me. She migrated from Puerto Rico when she was like 14 years old to New York. So I grew up in New York, but Puerto Rican and proud of it and proud of being Latinx and representing toda nuestra gente. Así que.
Why did you grow up with your grandma?
Yeah, my mom and dad just weren't, able to be around, and so my grandmother raised me, which, when I was younger, it was hard, right? Because, what kid doesn't want their mom and dad around? And, obviously I talked to them, but just because of either work or different things. And then I just ended up being so close to my grandma, I didn't want to move with them. And so, that kind of worked out like that. My grandmother raised me and my two younger primo hermanos, my two younger cousins. So, in the Bronx, and then we ended up going upstate New York, a small town called Dunkirk outside of Buffalo. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So it was just you? Only child?
And my two younger cousins, yeah.
And your two younger cousins. And so parents were around. It was just grandma who took care of you.
Yeah, periodically, Okay. And so I did grow up with this, like a level of feeling abandoned or like a neglect, like they're not around maybe because I'm bad or I did something wrong or, and eventually, I did have to like go through a healing process. I speak about this often about, like having trauma, we carry that in the body, we carry that in the mind and the spirit. And I had to go through some therapy and just, kind of, forgiving and letting go. And I talk to, my parents now, we have decent relationships, but, and they're both, obviously remarried and stuff. But, yeah, it's just the process of life. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. How does young Peter realize that there were stories that were created? Because something that happens that I think a lot of people don't realize is that the experiences that we receive, like in your case, your parents weren't around for whatever reason, but then your own young body created a story around it. Could have been like, oh, I'm not good enough for my parents to be around, or whatever the story may have been. When does Peter realize this is the story that I created and it's time to work on it?
That's good. I mean, I don't know. I don't think if it was just like one time, it's like a process of discovery, of new revelations, of, you inquiring, why your family makeup is a little bit different from maybe those around you or those that you've seen. So for example, I grew up in, like I said, upstate New York. It's freezing, right? And I'm a little kid walking to school in snowstorms, and I see some other kids, not all, but other kids with two parents or parents dropping them off in these nice cars. I'm like, something's different here. I'm like, why do I gotta walk and, growing up in the projects, right, and public housing in New York, and wondering why these things are, and so I think you start learning, and then for me, I was always curious. I was always very curious, and so I just started to ask questions and probe my grandmother and those in my family, and then I eventually obviously speak it. I did eventually move with my mom, when I was I think 10 or 11. So I got to live with my mom, in that case. But, and so, just kind of that instability early on, though, does create a certain level of confusion, of traumas, of, different emotions that at an early age, you don't know how to navigate, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody teaches you, However, I would say that through healing, through process, through counseling, through self-discovery, through forgiveness, all of those things, like you mentioned earlier, I grew a certain level of resilience from that, where now, first of all, I can help people who come from that type of background, and secondly, I will bet on me 110% all the time, because I know that I will fight for whatever I need to fight for to make what I think needs to happen. If that makes sense, So, I don't, obviously, it would have been probably better for me, especially for younger Peter, if things were different. However, I thank God for it, because it has made me the person I am today, So.
Did you ever talk to your grandma about it? As you were, she was raising you and your cousins, were you ever why do my peers have both parents walking them to school and they have nice cars, and what happened to us? Was that something that ever came up?
I don't think so. I don't think early on it came up. And then by the time I was older, I thought, she did her best. She gave us her best fourth grade education. She blessed us with her faith. And I think that was something that was priceless. That is priceless for me. And, I'm doing what I'm doing today because of my abuelita. Así que I'm just grateful. And it's,
Totally. I mean, she did the best she could with what she had.
Yeah. Talk about being resourceful, right? Resilience, by herself, raising, 3, grandkids. I mean, and she's not the only one, right? We have a lot of people like that who are either single parents or people who've lost, loved ones or jobs, and they have to reinvent themselves. I mean, that's why I was so excited to come here about our people being very entrepreneurial, right? Yeah. Being very innovative and creative. So I think that my grandmother, that generation, nuestros antepasados, have laid out a good blueprint for us to continue today and to ride out their legacy. So.
Totally. Entonces, how does young Peter lives in New York, even when you move to the small town, and how do you stay out of trouble, basically? Because it's really easy for a young man in New York without, quote, the traditional guidance. I mean, you had your grandmother, but I'm sure she had her hands full. I mean, she had 3 boys. I mean, it's a lot. And so how do you, did you have mentors or other type of support system that kind of brought you under their wing to guide you?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So, I write in my new book, Maximize, about this, actually. I got in a lot of trouble, actually, growing up. So, wow. I don't shy away from that. It's funny. I opened up my book talking about how it's funny now. It wasn't funny then, and I'm not condoning what I'm about to say for other people or young people. But, I used to hustle because that's what, you had to do to make a buck, right. And I wanted to help out, and so, I got caught with drugs in school at an early age, in my locker, a dog sniffed out marijuana. Marijuana is legal now, right? But I was ahead of my time,
It wasn't then.
So, yeah, I'm 45 years old now. So, it was a while back, and, but you mentioned one thing that is very important, and I think that it's important for everyone listening, that you need a mentor. You need people who have I don't want to say escaped, but like who have made it, who have been able to overcome certain obstacles, challenges, right? And for me, that angel was Dr. Laila Denoya, una mujer venezolana, who helped me. She came to my class in 10th grade, and I'm like, who is this trying to sell us some dreams, right? And she was talking about the Upward Bound program. It's the best thing that could, and it was basically, it still is a program targeted to first generation students of color, low socioeconomic status. And I fit all of those tickets, and I was like, whatever. But what caught my attention was you would go to a university for the summer and you would get paid. I'm like, what? Get paid and go to the campus? I was like, let's see what's going on, And, fast forward 30 plus years, and, she's like my adopted mother,
Wow.
She's been with me.
Are you still in touch with her?
Still in touch, man.
Wow.
She's inspiration. She's a Latina that has not only done that for me, okay, like for multitude of people. And so that's one person that I look up to, that I have tried to model my life and service and leadership. She has that Paulo Freire spirit of liberation, of like wanting everybody to be free, to maximize, to do well. And I caught that from her. And hasn't been easy, like she got me when I was a troubled youth, and much dysfunction and confusion. And it's easier to mentor people when they're like all fixed up, clean, have all this potential. But she saw a diamond in the rough. And I thank God for that, because again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people like her. So if you're out there and you have a troubled young person or someone who you think has potential, hey, sow into them, empower them, because it could be, you could be developing a future powerful leader, that we need. So
totally. I think, this is why this podcast exists, because I think we need to see ourselves reflected in people doing awesome things. So I'm glad. I'm glad she found you and she saw that potential in you. So I want to talk about something that you mentioned earlier, which is how you did get in trouble and you were caught, like the dog sniffed the marijuana in your locker. And I think it's a very systemic issue. Like it's the fact that young men are kind of like have to go to those routes many times is rooted in like, I want to help my family and this is the only way that I can make money. Do you agree? Like it's like,
yeah, that might be one reason. I think, I don't mean to cut you off. I think that also it's the context, right? So I was in the projects, I was in public housing, and really what you saw there was either people hustling, people working like 2 or 3 jobs to try to make ends meet, or, people working on the farm and la finca, people, it was very, very service oriented, but very low wage, you're just barely making it. And so you find yourself like in survival mode, and I thought, and then you see, you have easy access to those who are doing illegal activity, which is most likely hustling, selling drugs or selling things illegally. And so I think that for me, learning sales, right, on the streets, if I can say it like that entrepreneurship, it was just being channeled in the wrong way, in negative ways. Now I understand, like, wow, I am an entrepreneur. I can be innovative. I can, hustle in a positive way. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm trying to help our communities, that you have the right idea, you have the right spirit. You just now need to channel it in the right way, because obviously if you go that direction, you can get arrested, you can go to jail, you can be killed, all of these negative things, right? But you want to live, you want to flourish, you want to help others, you want to thrive. So and sometimes in those contexts, you don't have people speaking this language. It's the day to day, it's the grind, it's the hustle, it's the next buck, how can I make my next 100 or whatever it is. And it's like, no, we need to think 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out. At the age of 10, how can we help our kids think about retirement already? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a different type of thinking. Like, we don't really talk up like that. Pero los ricos sí, And so I think that that's why we need to start shifting our mindsets, start, empowering, not only our youth, but even people our age, older, people who maybe have struggled. There's different ways to think about this and do this. And so, we need to work on it.
100%. I think what comes to mind is victimization that is often portrayed in social media specifically, and how I often see pretty big influencers sometimes be like, well, the system is against us and everything was like put on our backs to survive and all we have to do is survive. And so what would you say to that rhetoric of we're the victims of the system and, nothing's like the world is against us.
Right.
What would you respond? Because you did it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't have like a yes or no, black or white binary type answer. Like, I think it's both and. I think that we cannot we can't deny we have some systemic issues, right? We have some inequities in society that need and continuously are being addressed. And that's part of my work in terms of equity and, inclusive leadership, all those things. However, especially people of color, and I come from this community, so I'm pretty bold at speaking about this. Like, we need to take responsibility of our lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, far too often we blame the majority culture or other people. And it's like, yes, again, there are some issues, but when am I, like, for me, things didn't change until I said, you know what, hold up. Like, I'm called, I have gifts, I am powerful, I am amazing, and I didn't really think like that until I started to take responsibility of my life and then have some goals. Like, where are you going, bro? Like, where are you going, my sister? Where are you going, my brother? Like, and so if you're just living like a zombie day to day, like just going through the motions, but if you're like, I have goals, I have, like in business, we talk about target market. So what is your purpose? In business, we say, what is your why, right?
Yes.
Por qué vives? Like, what is going on? And so when you have that in front of you daily, you start to think differently. You start to live differently. Like, I live my life on purpose now. I live my life, daily thinking about who can I help? Who can I empower? Who can I bless? In gratitude. I'm also thinking about how can I learn more? How can I become more valuable? Because the more I grow, right, the more we learn. We know this. The more you learn, the more you grow, the more valuable you become, not only to yourself, to your community, but to the marketplace, to the world. And so sometimes the system would prefer for you to live in mediocrity, to live, below your potential. And it's like, hold up, no. Like, those days are over, man. Like, that's honestly, Pam, that gets me so, you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to throw it out there. Like, that's the one thing that really upsets me is someone living below their potential when you can see clearly that they're so gifted, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I would answer that. Like, take responsibility of your life, begin to grow, begin to, have your goals, begin to go for it, because you know what? You only have one life to live. So when will you do it? The time is now.
Right. I love that. So how does young Peter say, how does a kid from the projects gets a doctorate? It's a lot.
It is. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I was saying before about taking responsibility of your life. Like, you never know what you can become unless you begin to fully invest in yourself, like, no one is going to believe in you and your dreams unless, first of all, they see you believing and fully invested. Like, if you think of business, angel investors, people who are looking to invest in business, they would never, unless they know that you have tried, that you have bootstrapped your own venture, that you have gone bankrupt trying to do what you're saying is the best thing. Exacto. Entonces, I think that it's been a journey, like, I failed community college 3 times, straight up 3 times, I've been through so much failure and setback, but every time.
Why did you keep going?
Well, so like, I tried when I first got out of high school, which I barely graduated high school. And then I went to community college, didn't work. So I went to the Marines. That's what you did, when you didn't have anything else to do. You're like, go to the military. So I went to the Marines, and then and that's such a lifetime ago, but and in the Marines, I tried to go to college again. But, you're serving in the military. For me at that time, it was so hard. There wasn't online education back then. So it was like, man, it's so difficult. Then I got out the Marines in 2003 and I went back to New York, but I went back to the same neighborhood, started to get, same habits. I actually came out of the Marine Corps an alcoholic. So I had all these issues. And then the transition of being in the military to becoming a civilian again it's a pretty big. It's a big deal. And so at the intersection of all of that, I just failed again. But I actually had this encounter, and I was reminded, of like my grandmother, how she raised me and that, there was more to life than just me and that there's a higher power. And so when that happened, again, it was taking responsibility of my life. And then I actually went in to start to study something that I was interested in, which was religion. And I studied that because I was like, first of all, if there's a God, I want to know, and two subjects that a lot of people like to avoid, but they're so crucial to humanity is politics and religion. So I'm like, I got to know some of these things, And so in that discourse, I began to do better, So I went from like a 1.5 GPA, right, of failing, being on probation, to then finally being able to pass. And then I now hold 2 doctoral degrees, actually.
Porque uno wasn't enough.
No, I was like, no, I'm just teasing. But it was just the process, of like growing. And then when I was in my graduate school and master's, I noticed all my professors were white men. I'm like, where are the like Latinos, Asians, African? Like, there's no one. And so I'm like, this is strange. And I heard like a voice say, why don't you do something about it? And so, well, to be a professor, you have to have a doctoral degree. So I went and I did that. My wife was very instrumental in that, of encouraging me, like, what are you going to do after your master's? I'm like, I'm just going to go speak. And she's like, do your doctoral degree. I'm like, what? Like, what is that? Like, who does that? But she's a Latina who's a PhD herself, so she encouraged me, she empowered me,
She had hers before yours?
Yeah. She was already completing hers in biochemistry and cancer cell biology. So,
wow.
She's a rock star. And so she was like, you need to do it because, if you want to really be an example to the community. And I said, she's right. How do you do this? And I started to get help and again, more mentorship. And I did. And, and I've been able to consult at different places like Harvard University, teach at Penn State. But who would have ever thought somebody from the projects, failed community college several times, has been through like the ringer, and now has a certain level of success. I don't say it like, oh, look at me. I just say it because I need people. I want people to hear like, contra, if he can do it, I can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's hope. Hay esperanza, but you really need to go after it and be serious about it. So.
Totally.
That was a long answer.
No, I like long answers. So you talk about your grandmother and her faith and how you were like, okay, I'm curious about religion. But then you went into it and you really experienced religion from the inside of academia. Yeah. What happened?
Oh, that's a great question.
You even wrote a book about it.
Yeah. I wrote Untold Stories, the Latinx leadership experience in higher ed. I'm a person of faith, like I mentioned, because of my grandmother Lourdes. She raised me and, she always said, believe in God and believe in yourself, and even when others don't believe, you have to believe in yourself, Mm-hmm. And that has stayed with me. But really her religion or her ways of God, of thinking of God and stuff really were not my own. I would go to church or, faith, meetings because I had to, right? My grandma's like, let's go. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. But when I came a time when I was like, I didn't want anything to do, not with God, but I guess with organized religion, right? Uh-huh. Like I was like, I don't want anything to do with organized religion. Which is typical. Religion. Yeah. But then in 2006, like I said, I had this encounter. I was in a rehab center. Pam. And I was just like suicidal. I was like hurt. I was lost. And there, God, if you can believe this, visited me, encountered me. And I just felt like, what am I doing here? And that was the turning point for me, of like, okay, I really need to get my stuff together. I really need to live out my purpose. And I have a mission here on earth, you know? And so that was like the turning point. And I began to study, you know, I've studied, you know, theology, religion, religious studies from the bachelor's to the PhD level. So it's not like, you know, I was really serious about like, I want to know more. And in that journey, I began to serve in religious affiliated institutions. And there's a lot of good in those institutions. I need to say that, you know, and there's a lot of good people. However, I did also meet the other side of like, well, people are human. People are people.
People.
And also, you know, there's a lot of politics involved in religion, and especially in the U.S., there's a lot of interconnectedness between culture and tradition and politics and religion. And so at times you get to see, at least for me, I witnessed and saw that it wasn't necessarily about God, but really upholding, you know, maybe certain people, you know, to be more privileged or, you know, to have the upper hand on others. And I thought, what the heck is this? What is going on? And I was a vice president of a couple of these universities and sometimes feeling like a token, like, you know, having to speak for all Latinos. I'm like, I'm only one Latino. I can't speak for the whole Latinx, Hispanic community. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't work like that. Or really seeing how we were being marginalized and minoritized at the expense of others. So I just, you know, I wanted to make a difference in that.
So you were in there. What got you to be like, okay, we're done? And you wrote this book. What was that tipping point?
Honestly, it was seeing. So for me, faith or like belief in God is that, you know, God is love, I believe. And whatever, you know, however you think of God, of faith, you know, I believe that it has to be based on love. I mean, what else is there, right? And it has to be based on equity, and it has to be based on liberation, and it has to be based on, you know, the notion that every human being is created in the image and likeness of God, right? Who I'm a Jesus follower, but I know that can be triggering for some people or even stigmatized or politicized. But I'm talking about the Jewish carpenter who came, who wanted to help people, that's who I'm talking about. And so when I started to see like, it's not really about that. It's either maybe about money or it's about power. I love what Miguel de la Torre talks about the 3 Ps: unearned power, privilege, and profit. And since the days of the Atlantic slave trade, since the days of colonization, you know, into the modern day of even in business, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm fully aware of that. Like how sometimes, you know, making a profit can be at the expense of enslaving others. And I thought, you know, this is not cool, man. Like I thought we were in the business of developing leaders for the flourishing of humanity, for organizational thriving. And so that's where it became sticky for me. And then at times where faith is being used to actually rationalize the oppression or the subjugation of certain people, I was like, I'm not cool with that, you know. And to be honest, it wasn't like a light switch, if that makes sense, like on and off. It was like a light dimmer, right? Oof. Of like, oh my goodness, like this is what's going on. And you know what? I was supporting that for a while because I didn't see it. I wasn't woke enough, if I can use that terminology, you know. I call it woke in the spirit. Like I wasn't woke in the spirit.
Dang.
But it was a growth for me. And I think that was the divine saying, wake up, you know, you have to be a part of the justice side, of the liberation side, and not the oppression side. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do, and I'm glad that, you know, I'm able to serve in that capacity and today be having these conversations with people like you. That's
awesome. That's very deep. Thank you for sharing. So let's take a quick coffee break. Un cafecito break. So Dr. Peter, do you drink coffee?
I do, but right now I have agua. So
sí, porque ya es un poco tarde for you, no?
11:55.
Yeah. So how do you drink your coffee?
I drink it. First of all, I love coffee. I usually buy coffee and whole beans so that I can grind it.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm serious about coffee. I don't know, it's colo. Like like the old sock, the old fashioned sock,
Wow.
Yeah, I use
Old
that.
school.
Yeah, because I feel like the flavor is so much potent, so much powerful. I'm lactose intolerant, so I have to get I on my ideal coffee would be lactose free organic milk.
Okay.
But you can't have that all the time. I'll do oat milk, if I have to, and just maybe a little bit of brown sugar, and I'm ready to go. Pero
Nice.
cafecito. My grandmother, who I've already talked about, when I was a little child, would put my bobo, my pacifier, in the coffee and give it to me.
No.
Yeah, so she got me, addicted on coffee.
She put the coffee in your blood.
Yeah, yeah. Faith in coffee, man. That's
what got you through it. I love it.
So she I love coffee though, and I get coffee everywhere we go. St. Martin, Puerto Rico, get stuff online from Africa. I mean, everywhere. So, how about you?
I'm drinking mushroom coffee. So it's regular coffee with adaptogenics mushrooms in it. So they're not psychedelics. So they're like lion's mane and just a little bit of mushrooms that kind of like help with the brain.
Okay.
So it's not psychedelics. I'm not here tripping. So people know.
It's not shrooms.
It's not shrooms. Different kind of shrooms. So I usually drink this because it helps me with my ADHD. So I have an ADHD brain, and I do mushroom coffee because it helps me with my focus. Now, I have cut caffeine a little bit, not too much, but a little bit recently, just because I wanted to, give myself a little cleanse from time to time.
Yep.
But so instead of having like 3 cups of coffee, I'm having like 1.5.
I thought you were gonna say 2.5.
1.5. We're getting there.
Yeah, right.
Do you want to give a shout out to a coffee shop?
I just went today to Maison here in Orlando.
Okay.
Maison is a chain from Puerto Rico, so they're pretty good, and I think Orlando is the first place outside of Puerto Rico that they have established a Maison. So
wow, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
On my end, I want to give a shout out to Public Square in San Diego. Public Square is a local coffee shop. It's kind of like a gathering space. They do have food. They have scones. They have delicious coffee. And I went yesterday to get some work done, and I was there for 3 hours, and I got so much done. The power of like the coffee shop for productivity is awesome.
It's amazing. You want to hear a coffee joke?
Tell me.
So I have a cousin who they told him, he's an older person, and the doctor told him, you're drinking way too much coffee, the caffeine. Obviously a little caffeine is good, it's healthy, but overdose, it's he's like, you got to slow down. We have to bring you to at least 1 cup a day. He's like, 1 cup a day, like he drank various coffee pots, and
wow.
He's like, all right, I'm going to try, but I can't promise anything. He goes, yeah, so I began to drink 1 cup a day. That's right. But I bought a cup this big. And so he's like, I'm drinking a big old cup like this once a day.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that's not what the doctor is talking about. You need, but like you, I'm also trying to, I was drinking 2 major cups a day. I'm just trying to go to 1 because, too much caffeine makes me a little bit more anxious than what I need to be, because I'm already a high energy person, and then putting the coffee on top of that, so yeah, it's about finding balance, isn't it?
It is. We'll get there. I don't know if we ever achieve balance, but harmony at least.
Harmony.
Okay, well, let's get back to the show to wrap up your interview and learn more about you. Peter, you go into academia and go into this theology, religion path, but then you get out. What's the next step for you? Because after you write this book, it's almost like you basically had people turn on you because you called people out. And so how do you decide what's your next step from there?
Yeah, that's good. It's again just following the journey, following the call. Like you said, after writing Untold Stories, I felt like a lot of doors closed on me. Partly, in part, I think being misunderstood, but also in part when you confront people, even if it's with grace. A lot of people and organizations don't want to be confronted, but I think it was the right thing to do. And so one more thing about that, like when a lot of systems, even universities that are not religious, so it's not like I'm just here beating up on religious affiliate institutions. No, not at all. They're secular, public, community college, that their systems were not created for people like us.
Yes.
And so it's still been a time coming of like trying to recruit people of color, women in leadership, thinking about intersectionality, thinking about all these things that before was not a thought because we were not invited to those meetings or circles,
Mm-hmm.
So, but time has changed, right? And also the fastest growing student population are kids of color. So we have to think about that. And also the returning adults that are going to school. And so I think for me, that then opened the pathway to really think about what did I want to do, with my skill sets, with my education. I had already consulted before, but the consulting firm didn't do too well. So, with some business partners, my spouse, just rethinking how can we pivot, and we dissolved what was called Robust Innovative Organizational Solutions, and we rebranded to Peter Rios Consulting because it would go through my own brand of who I was. I was trying to lead and serve through my own personal identity of being, Latinx, and also, this person who overcame so much, and how can I now implement that for people in coaching and also organizations that want to do better but don't know how. And that has been a journey the last 3 years, of coaching, consulting, of speaking. That one thing led to another. It's like the consulting and coaching opens doors, but then writing books led to more speaking. And so now I'm on a speaking tour, Maximize Your Life. Be in Phoenix next week. Really excited about that.
Nice.
Excited about September. I'll be speaking with Les Brown in Orlando. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're in Orlando, Florida, September 1st, it's called Unleash Your Greatness. And that will be really fun. And also just a great opportunity to, speak into people's lives and to encourage them to pursue their dreams. And so there we are, just continuing that journey, writing my third book on leadership development. And we'll see what life brings. But, like I mentioned earlier, I have a target, I have goals, and that's what I'm trying to do. And so I have learned that if you stick to that, and if you do a little bit every day, you'll be surprised what you can achieve at the end of the year, And so that is the challenge, by the way. People are going to hear us in July. That is literally the 7th month, right, of the year. You're in the second half of the year. So think about it. Do a self-analysis. What did you do the first 6 months? Are you on the path of where you want to be and where you want to go? Or do you need to make some modifications, changes, and pivots? The time is now. Come on.
The time is now, indeed. Every June, I send a mid-year review.
Okay.
Because to your point, I think it is important to kind of I think year-long goals sometimes could feel very stretched.
Yeah.
And so if we break it in the middle and we do okay, what's happening right now? What are we doing? What have we not done? What can we improve? Totally agree with you. It's a great time to do it. 100%.
Awesome.
Let's talk about men, especially Latino men, because you talk about personal development and leadership. And I think there's a lot of stigma when it comes to, I don't know, what's coming up. It's gentle leadership. But basically what I want to say is not machismo, because there's the preconceived notion that men are just from a societal standpoint, they're the providers and they're the leaders of the family and they're the patriarchs in some way. And so how could men now step into their own leadership without pushing the machismo?
Yeah, that's good. Just to be fair, I struggled with machismo for a while, right? Because it's society leans towards you to lead and live like that. That's the norm, right? Heteronormativity, all of these are norms that have for generations. So for me, I'll be honest, what has helped me is my being married, my partner, Ruby. Like like I said, she's a rock star. Like, and it wasn't until I got married to Ruby that she began to challenge me in certain ways. She wasn't disrespectful, but she challenged me, and she challenged some of the things, the ways I was thinking, which today, like at first it was like very uncomfortable. And I'm like, hold up, like I'm the man, and it's like, no. And so I think that what I have learned from my relationship with Ruby, plus just education and also serving in different contexts, because sometimes if you only live in the US or if you only live in one state, you're like, you have limitations, but I've lived in, several different countries now. I've worked across multiple industries. And so I've learned and this is what my third book is about, contextual leadership. Mm-hmm. Like, first of all, Latinos, we do something that better, I think, than most cultures, and that's code switch, right?
Yes.
We can code switch. We know how to go in and out of different cultures. Why? Because first of all, we've had to survive, right?
Porque no hay de otra.
Vamos a buscarla, like we have to, and so we've learned how to go in and out of cultures, be fluid. It's almost like being a chameleon, right?
Yes.
However, without losing who you are. That's so important. So every one of us, if we live in the US, you have assimilated to a certain level or degree. However, the issue or the tension is that, do I lose my Latinidad, or how can I still remain who I am, right? And still be effective and influential. And I think that's the sweet spot. So that's one, learn how to code switch. Number two is that a lot of these machismo or these antiquated models of leadership really aren't serving anyone because, again, we have the growth of people of color. We are more multicultural, multi-ethnic than ever. We have the growth of women in leadership, more CEOs than ever. So you have to, if you want to be effective and influential today, you have to learn how to navigate the diversity of people, of gender, of intersectionality. Mm-hmm. If not, you're just an antiquated person, leader who, you're going to look and you're going to see no one's following you. Right. So, and I think that also, why are you in leadership? For me, again, it goes to the core of, I understand that the world is the way the world is. And, if I want to make a difference, I have to serve. And so I believe in the power of service, of intentional service. I write about that in Maximize, like being intentional about service, and if I can finish with this, like in this section about Martin Luther King Jr. Once I heard, and it's a powerful message. You listen to it. It's called the drum major instinct, right? Okay. Martin Luther King Jr. once spoke on that. And he was saying how there was two disciples of Jesus, and they asked him, we want to be on your right side and your left side when you go to your kingdom. And Jesus was like, that's not for me to do or give. That's not the main point of the story. The main point of the story was that Martin Luther King was saying these two guys wanted to be positioned, And so their intention of being in leadership was not correct. And then he compares that to the drum major. The drum major is a person in a marching band who's up front, right? Leading the band and gives direction. And he says, the drum major instinct, we all have it. We all want to be first. Who doesn't want to belong? Come on, Pam. Right. Like everybody wants to belong. I want to be included. However, be included for the right reasons. Be first. He says, don't lose that instinct of wanting to be first, but be first in love, be first to serve, be first to empower others. And I'm like, wow. And that's so powerful. And then Martin Luther King finishes by saying, when I leave this earth, I don't want people to know me as, this guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize, or who has a PhD from Boston University, or who has all these awards for, this and that. He says, I want to be known because I helped humanity to become better.
Yes.
And so for me, I have adopted that DNA of leadership of how can I help humanity become better? And I know that in order to do that, I have to become better. I have to learn. I have to get deeper into what really matters. And from that place and space, I think you can create a more healthy, well-being, spiritual, emotional, physical well-being, and you can serve from a better place. And I think the world accepts that. Doesn't matter where you're from. Who doesn't want to be empowered? Who doesn't want to be brought in? And so keep that drum major instinct. Be first, but be first to love, to serve, to empower.
Ooh, that's so good. And then I have challenging questions because, that's what I do. Because I hear this, and the reason I'm asking it from a male perspective is because I feel like women have we have just come together in so many ways because women systemically separated and put against each other, and so now we're growing to be no, we're gonna uplift each other. And I don't know if there's that acceptance for men yet, because it's still you do this on your own and you're supposed to be strong and whatever. And so that's why I'm thinking about it from a male perspective, and also because, you do this. And so for those men who are okay, great, I'm listening, I am stepping into that drum major idea, how do I find what is my purpose?
Yeah. I think I go back to the intentional service piece, right? I think, who are you following? Who are role models for you? If you are, when I grew up, right, when I was young and I was in the projects, my role models were those hustlers on the corner.
Yes.
And so that was what I was trying to model, but then I got different models. I got the Dr. Denoyas. I got different leaders. I mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. I met, people who I kind of saw, and I saw myself in them. I saw pieces of me, or fragments, little revelations, little manifestations of oh, I like that. I'm drawn to that. And then you have to think, why are you drawn to that? So, you need to find people who are doing things that you want or would like to be involved in, and then see how you can support them in that vision and mission. I think along that journey, that's what I did. I followed this a friend earlier on. He was speaking, traveling. He was speaking to a lot of young people. And I said, "Contra, brother." I said, "Hey, can I join you? Can I help you?" He's like, "Well, how?" I said, "I don't know anything. I'll carry your bags, not anything." He's like, "Yeah, you could join me." So I started to travel with him at least, periodically every month. I would carry his bags. I would, again, be intentional about serving him, helping him to fulfill his mission and call. I would get water, do things that honestly he didn't need me to do, but I was trying to be helpful and mitigate what, the work he had to do so that he can just go up and speak.
Yes.
But something else was happening. First of all, I was learning firsthand.
Yes.
I was learning firsthand, and I was watching, and I was like a little sponge, soaking up. Oh, okay, so that's how you create associates in different states. Okay, that's how you open a campaign. That's how you, leverage. And so until one point, he said, we were in this youth camp, and it was to empower young people to I can't remember what, but he said, "Hey, bro, you're going to speak today." I said, "Speak? I'm going to speak today?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "There's 500 young people out there." He's like, "I know, but I've seen you talk to people. I think you've been traveling with me for, a couple of years now. You can do it.
You got it."
And yeah, he's like, "You got it." And man, temblando. I'm like, I'm reminded what Jim Rohn said. I got up to speak and my mind sat down.
Wow. Oh my God.
But you know what? I kept doing it. My mind, I would get up, my mind would sit down. I kept doing it. And now, I get up and I still have a little bit of anxiety, or I still have this adrenaline, but I get up and I'm ready to kill it because I know I have a message to deliver. I'm living my message. And so I would say do that. Find somebody who you can follow as a role model, who's being genuine, and try to, follow their steps. I think that's a good beginning.
I like that. So if present Dr. Peter was going to meet little Peter, let's say 6-year-old Peter, what would you say to him?
I would say, you know what? You are awesome. You are amazing. You are loved. And don't quit no matter how hard things will get, because you have an amazing journey before you. So learn all that you can learn, because that's really important. And I would tell young Peter that become a lifelong learner earlier. I'm a lifelong learner now, but if I could go back, I would have started that earlier.
What do you think he would respond?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that. I think little Peter would have said, well, what should I learn first? Because he had a little attitude,
Yeah.
How funny. What should I learn first?
And then what would you say?
I would tell him, learn who you are and learn where you come from and learn more about your people. It wasn't until I was challenged by Juan Martinez, un mexicano de California. I was at Fuller Graduate School in my PhD program, and he told me, what type of reading have you done on Puerto Rico? And I said, really not much. He said, what type of reading have you done on Latinx, Latinos, Hispanics overall in general? I said, I've done a little bit, but he goes, no. Here are 10 books you're going to start to read. Go to the library, get about another 50 more. De Puerto Rico, the colonization, all of these things. And then we'll start the mentoring. And so I'm like, oh, man, I may have picked the wrong mentor, because I'm like, I don't want this PhD program to take forever. It takes a long time. But I'm like, this is going to be extra long. I just want to But that was a gift. It was a gift because I got to learn about the history, about the important history of our people, of my community in particular, and where I fit in that history and the responsibility I have, right? Our people who have come before us have paid a huge price for you and me to be sitting here on a podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like our people, have paid, there was a time when we couldn't vote, we couldn't go to school, we couldn't do any of those things. And you're going to sit here and complain about things? No. And that goes back to the beginning, right? Of taking responsibility. And so Juan Martinez helped me in that area. I will never forget that.
Yeah. It's that what you just shared is something that I remind myself when I get into this pouty times of things are not working. Yeah. But then I'm like, you know what? Your grandmother literally walked miles to cross this border so you could be here. And so did your mother. So what are you doing trying to quit? Do it for them. So totally.
That's great.
You. Okay. So sadly, we're coming to an end. We're running out of time. So tell us all the places and spaces where we can find you. When is your new book coming out? Where can we find your other books? Share all the links.
Nice. Well, first of all, thank you, Pam, for having me. It's been such an amazing time with you, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Continue to make a huge difference and continue to lead. Everyone can, you can follow me at Dr. Peter Rios. So that's Dr. Peter Rios. You can visit me at my website, peterriosconsulting.com. And all my books are on Amazon. So go to Amazon. You can find my newest book, Maximize 12 Keys to Unlocking Your Greatest Potential. Está en español también, así que en bilingüe. Maximiza 12 llaves para liberar tu mayor potencial. So it's available in both languages. You may not need it. You may be doing well. That's cool. Your family, your colleagues, your neighbor who's getting you on your nerve, bless them with the book. They may change. So those are all the ways that you can contact me and see what we're up to. And my newer book, probably in 2025. Okay. So yeah, there's not a date yet, but
Awesome. Well, we'll drop all the links in the show notes so people you don't have to write them down frantically or try to remember them if you're writing. Everything will be in the show notes. And so let's do some final questions. Do you have a remedio that you want to share with us?
I think prayer, I go back to that, and for me, prayer, daily prayer, reflection, meditation, even journaling has been so vital for me to keep to be sane, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I concur.
Because my mind can go a gazillion ways, and like you said earlier about having ADHD. I think that I struggle with something similar in terms of focus. So that meditation, that prayer, that really helps me to focus. So I would say if you've never tried that, please start.
I love that. Do you have a quote or mantra that you live by in this moment, this chapter of your life?
Yes. I want to share nothing grows in the comfort zone. So just because you're feeling uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that whatever is going on is wrong. It just means you're uncomfortable. And if you want to grow, you will never grow in comodidad, right? You never grow in comfort. It's always going to be uncomfortable. Yes. Think about a plant. Think about a caterpillar. I'm sure a caterpillar going through its metamorphosis process, it's not comfortable.
Yes.
And I think it's the same with us. I think that sometimes we get tricked on social media and TV and all these other things of reality TV of like people just from day to night are success or whatever, however you define success. But whatever success is to you, I am sure it's going to take hard work, resilience, persistence, and you're going to be uncomfortable. So be okay with that.
Yes, I agree. It reminds me of my brother recently, he broke his Achilles tendon. Ooh. And so he's been going through rehab. And so one of the quotes that we came across for muscles was the only way to grow a muscle is through, no me va a salir bien, pero I'm going to butcher it. But it was like the only way to grow a muscle is through stress, through stretching it, or tearing it. And so like it goes to your get uncomfortable. Like the only way to grow is like, well, I mean, it's not suffering. So I want to make it clear.
Right. That's a little different.
It's a little different, but it is, we do have to like stretch ourselves a little bit to get to that next level. 100%. I agree.
Yep.
And do you have a productivity tip, trick, or tool that you want to share with us?
Oh, you know what? Yes. So it's funny, obviously I just wrote maximize. And so that's about becoming your best version, right? That's about going all in. But I would actually say you need to minimize, like, and what I mean by that is like, learn to say no. Like I am saying no to all kind of things. I'm like, no, I can't.
Well, I'm glad you said yes to me.
Yeah, right. But, like even things that are really good are fruitful or they're going to be a blessing, but it may not be for you. It may not be the right time. Maybe you're, so I've learned to say no because I'm a people pleaser. I'm extroverted, I love people and I want people to like me. But as a leader, and this is a growth edge for me, I'm just being honest and transparent. Like I had to learn how to say no because I was feeling like overwhelmed, overworked.
Yeah.
Too much. And actually those things, even though they were good, they were taking me away from my why, from what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm really working hard at saying yes to what I'm supposed to be doing and saying no to what I'm not supposed to be doing. I know it sounds very simple, but when you have relationships and you want to help people and right, you're like, yes, okay, count on me. Yes, I'll do it. And it's like, no. Like, my friend, I'm so, and here, let me help you. A practical way to say no. First of all, you don't have to answer to the people if they ask you right away. Tell them, let me think about it. So that gives you some breathing room. And number two, when you do respond, if you know for sure, that you're not supposed to, or you just have a doubt, I would say don't do it. Thank them. Hey, thank you for the opportunity, but at this time I won't be able to do it. If you have somebody you can recommend, right? Recommend somebody so that way you feel that you contributed. But at the end of the day, we need to take care of our mental, physical, spiritual well-being. And being overwhelmed and overworked is not going to help. So I say no, and I also take a day off every week, like a Sabbath, like un día de descanso, que no hago nada.
Agreed, 100%. And so on that note, the very last question is, how are you taking a restorative pause today?
A restorative pause?
Pause. Una pausa.
Yeah. I think today this is the only, if this can count as work, the only thing I'm going to do.
Nice.
I traveled yesterday, and so today I'm just taking it easy.
Awesome. Super cool. Well, Dr. Peter, thank you so much for coming to Café con Pam. This was super fun. Thank you for your work. We'll definitely have everything linked in the show notes so people can read your books, come to Florida. If they catch you in your speaking tour, we'll drop all that information there. But thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for having me. And all of you who are listening, maximize your life. We're waiting on you.
Yay. All right, everyone. That was my conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're inspired. Dr. Rios' life truly is an inspiration because it would have been really easy for him to go in a different path. And so the fact that he was able to make a different choice and to be where he is and his passion for transforming not just organizations, but also the youth, because I've seen his work and with young people, I think it's really powerful. And I would love for you to drop a comment, follow, let us know what you think. It's great when you screenshot and tag me on the podcast. I also love getting your DMs. It's really cool to hear when you send me a message and you're like, hey, somebody messaged me and they were like, I was in my garden and I had to go inside and do the exercise that you shared. Or somebody else said, I was driving to work and I was feeling down and I felt so inspired after I listened to your guest story. And so it really makes a difference to hear or to read your comments when you feel called to send them to me. So thank you. I appreciate it so much. If this is your first time here, please follow, subscribe, depending on where you are listening to, tuning into. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment, share this episode with whoever you feel that might be interested in hearing more. You can also, if you are on whatever podcast platform, the most popular ones are Apple Podcast and Spotify, at least for Café con Pam, and you can follow us on there. Drop some stars. It makes a difference when you leave us some stars because also podcast platforms operate from an algorithm perspective. And so when you're dropping stars, when you leave me stars and reseñas or reviews, that really helps with the algorithm so that the podcast is shared and recommended with other people. So I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so, so much. Listeners, let's stay connected on the socials at Café con Pam Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, cafeconpam.com to learn about all of the things, to sign up to get the latest episode via newsletter. Everything happens on there, cafeconpam.com. Very easy. Listeners, thank you so, so much for being here today. Sending you so much love. Y como siempre, stay shining. Sabrosura pa' ti que